أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today I will be briefly discussing Collingwood's idea of history, of which I've made a short video, which will be up shortly. Friedman's Capitalism, Ibn Khaldun's Al-Muqaddimah, and looking into Toynbee's book Civilization on Trial, Chapter 10, looking at Islam and the West, and his fascinating theories on this. So before I begin, I think it's important that I mention the motivation behind said videos and today's stream. So, in case you're not aware, Al Aqsa is currently going through what one would say the final act of colonization, as Brother Ismail states in the article we're about to read. And Jordan's Waqf was the authority behind Al Aqsa, but now it seems to be the case where Al Aqsa is slowly being taken over, whereby the Imam is being replaced and the third temple and the dream of the third temple is going to be fulfilled. Therefore, the Masih, in our view, the Dajjal, will arrive soon and there will be massive chaos. And then Mahdi alayhi salam, along with Isa alayhi salam, will finish all these demons. So, we'll begin by reading this article published yesterday titled Al Aqsa, the moment of peril is here. Will the Muslim world act? So this is the final act of colonization. Jerusalem's Islamic identity will be effaced, its name and meaning repurposed to serve the Israeli colonial order. An exclusive investigation by Middle East Eye last week revealed that both US and Israel were coordinating to remove Jordan's custodianship over Islam's third holiest site. This is not a diplomatic maneuver. This is the culmination of a systematic campaign to erase Islamic presence in occupied Jerusalem and a direct call upon Muslims worldwide to awaken from a dangerous complicit slumber. So essentially, Al Aqsa is being taken over. The final sign off is due very soon, seemingly this year. When the announcement arrives, it will wear the language of pluralism as a mask. So the idea of unity, multi faith, Abrahamic brothers coming together, which is a farce, it's a scam. It will invoke multi faith, excuse me, multi faith coexistence, equal access, and shared heritage. Yet beneath this veneer lies the reality. It is the final act of Israeli colonization. Jerusalem's Islamic identity will be effaced, its name and meaning repurposed to serve the Israeli colonial order. The Middle East Eye reported that both Washington and Tel Aviv are actively working to strip Jordan of its historic custodianship over Al Aqsa Mosque. The plan would abolish the authority of the Jordanian backed Islamic Waqf and replace it with a body created by the Scumrali government. That new entity would declare Al Aqsa's multi faith center and would grant Jews equal access. It would allow Scumral to appoint imams and officials. Scumrali authorities would have a sign off over the content of Friday's sermons. So, what's happening in essence is that imams are being appointed at the moment that will lead prayers in Al Aqsa, and these prayers in Al Aqsa will culminate the idea of multi faith brotherhood, Abrahamic religions coming together, and all this other nonsense. And this is very important. This is why in my upcoming short video I mention how capitalism is playing a huge part here, which most of us forget. And the idea that free market, free enterprise, therefore political freedom is the best device for achieving economic freedom and the best move forward is this idea of liberal capitalism and a necessary condition for political freedom. And this is where the idea of history now steps into place. What's the history of Al Aqsa? Why is it so important for the Muslimin? Why, apart from Umar alayhi salam and Salahuddin, what else is happening there? Right? So it's extremely important and it's imperative on every Muslim to understand the history of Al-Aqsa. And the Golden Dome is misappropriately called the Masjid of Al-Aqsa, which is not true. Al-Aqsa is towards the back of the compound of the Golden Dome, but that entire compound is typically called Al-Aqsa. So the Trump administration wishes to see Al-Aqsa stripped of its Islamic identity. It would be repackaged as a tourist attraction, hosting all three Abrahamic religions. This is not a proposal, it's a blueprint for ethnocide. The systematic campaign aims to purge Jerusalem of its Muslim identity and render invisible the histories and presence that have shaped this sacred space. The current process of removing Jordan's custodianship is not new. Rather, it is the officialization of ongoing Scumrali colonization. The reality is that the status quo, recognizing Al Aqsa as an Islamic sanctuary under the Waqf, has been eroded incrementally, reflecting the deliberate strategy to shift authority and identity away from Muslims and towards a Scumrali colonial order. So, this is essentially the case where the Greater Israel Plan starts from, because from here, gradually they will branch out to the whole of Levant, touching the Arabian Peninsula, touching Masr, Egypt, and Syria, and establishing their demonic Talmudic kingdom. So, this is not a matter of speculation. Evidence is concrete, documented, and mounting with each passing year. 2025 report by Scumrali Monitoring Group, Ir Amim, recorded an unprecedented rise in Jewish raids on Aqsa compound. Scumrali authorities provide police protection. They increasingly exploit Jewish and national holidays to increase number of Scumralis entering Al-Aqsa. Researcher Aviv Tatarsky stated plainly, under the guise of religious Jewish connection, Israel is steadily taking control of the holy site. So who is this Aviv Tatarsky? 8 months ago. Okay. Beaten by settlers. When was this? Wow, a couple of months ago. Yeah, it's like the lady who exposed the grape protests and the soldiers who were raping prisoners. She was harassed and followed around everywhere. So yeah, bro, they're horrible, disgusting people. So Aviv Tatarsky is founding member of Engaged Dharma Israel group of Scumrali practitioners who, as a part of their practice, engage in action in solidarity with Palestinian communities. Aviv lives in Jerusalem where he works for human rights NGO Amim and is a Dharma facilitator for Tovana. So this guy is a Zen practitioner. Okay, right, we'll touch into this in a minute. Al-Aqsa once welcomed hundreds and thousands for Friday prayers. Now, due to Israeli restrictions, Scumrali restrictions and harassment of Muslims, this sees only a few thousand and sometimes hundreds of daily worship. Israel already has total control of who enters and exits Al-Aqsa. The restrictions imposed on Palestinian worshippers are not arbitrary. They are calculated expressions of a colonial logic of attrition. In this year alone, over 600 Palestinians have been banned from Al-Aqsa. 30 Waqf employees and their entry permits revoked, and 6 imams have been silenced and barred from delivering sermons. As Ikrama Sabri, senior imam of Al-Aqsa, observes, these are unprecedented actions designed to impose domination. Where once we warned that Alexa was in danger, now we must recognize it faces a multiplicity of dangers, each compounding the other. Axis of Islamic identity. Last month, Israeli ministers and parliamentarians orchestrated mass incursions into Al-Aqsa, and its Israeli lawmaker openly called for Al-Aqsa to be demolished and replaced with Jewish temple. Israeli flags were hoisted within the Aqsa compound. At the same time, Scumrow has advanced the confiscation of Palestinian property near the Chain Gate Street, a vital entryway into Jerusalem's old city. This is part of the accelerating Judaization of Jerusalem. Arab and Islamic states condemned closure of Al-Aqsa during Israel war in Iran. During this period, Al-Aqsa was sealed for 40 days. It was an act of colonial domination and rendered Muslim sacred space subject to whims of occupation. The restrictions imposed on Palestinian worshippers are not arbitrary. They are calculated expressions of colonial logic of attrition. I say this directly as I'm able to say anything. The Muslim world's greatest threat at the moment is not Israeli aggression backed and bankrolled by American power. It's the apathy, the division, and institutional paralysis of those who claim Al Aqsa as their own. I agree here. So the enemy is within, essentially. For Muslimin, Al Aqsa is not a heritage site to be managed by diplomatic communiques. It is the first Qibla of Muhammad's night journey and ascension. Well, technically, it's not. First Qibla was always Kaaba, then it was shifted here, then it was shifted back. The holiest masjid and a living axis of Islamic identity and civilization. Its desecration is not merely a geopolitical provocation, it is an assault on the collective memory and selfhood of over 2 billion people. And yet the Muslim world watches, issues statements, and returns to its silence. Governments that could apply genuine economic and diplomatic pressure calculate their interest and look away. The Ummah could fill streets, instead scrolls past. Yeah, I mean, the way he phrases it is quite very concerning. Silence is complicity. For those outside the Muslim world, the stakes remain profound. What is unfolding is the formalization of colonial sovereignty over a site revered by more than 2 billion people. This act would enshrine a precedent that the slow violence of erasure, when executed with sufficient propaganda and imperial backing, is not only tolerated but ultimately rewarded. The Arab Organization for Human Rights has meticulously documented the systematic nature of these violations. The global community, for the most part, has chosen silence. That silence is not neutral, it is complicity. The 11th hour has already arrived. The Muslim world and everyone opposing colonial erasure must mobilize all tools, diplomatic, legal, economic, and moral, immediately. If we do, and if we do not act now with the full weight of conscience and conviction, the language of coexistence will have been used to complete a Zionist dispossession decades in the making. So the brother is part of this NGO. Right, so we have a report here by Ir Amim. Ir Amim. and this is from Feb 2026. So this article, and now speaking about this. So ahead of Ramadan, Israeli escalating scum-Israeli policy at Al-Aqsa Temple Mount and growing harm to Muslim freedom of worship. Right, so let's look into this a bit more. For the first time more than 2 years since October 7, 23, Muslim holy month Ramadan will take place when Scumrail is not officially in a state of war. Since outbreak of war, Scumroll has used the situation to limit Muslim access to Al-Aqsa Temple Mount, expand Jewish prayer at the holy site. Yet even now, as Scumroll allegedly goes back to normal, the Israeli government continues to support the temple movements that violate Muslims' freedom of worship at Al-Aqsa. Last month, the Israeli police announced that it would permit temple movement activists to bring prayer sheets into the holy esplanade. This step is wholly inconsistent with the status quo under which the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount is a place of worship for Muslims, while members of other religions, including Jews, may also visit. Permission for prayer sheets was granted several weeks after Netanyahu effectively took ownership of the changes Scumroll has been undertaking at the holy site, while continuing to insist that the status quo is never being upheld. Netanyahu also stated that the changes ordered by National Security Minister Itmar being Gvir were being carried out in coordination with him. Moreover, Temple Mount's movements are not content with this new development and are signaling further changes, including bringing in full Jewish prayer books, Sidurim. So this is a concise prayer book. It's usually brown, but you can find black ones, I believe. Yeah, so these are the ones talking about here. Jewish prayer contains set of order and daily Shabbat derived from Siddurim, liturgy, daily holiday life laying tefillin, entering structures in the compound, extending visiting hours for Jews, and more. All part of the efforts to dismantle the status quo, and turn the compound into a Jewish worship site. Meanwhile, the data the police provided to right-wing activists in response to Freedom of Information requests revealed that the total number of Muslim worshippers who attended Friday prayers at Al-Aqsa in 25 less than half the figure a decade ago. The sharp decline in the number of worshippers underscored the profound impact of escalating scum-Israeli restrictions on Muslim freedom of worship at the compound. Apart from the new full-blown access to the site of West Bank Palestinian Israeli police conduct sends a deterring message that prevents many Muslims, particularly young men, from accessing the compound for fear of harassment. The police arbitrarily bar individual young Muslim men from entering the mount, restrictions that often expand into sweeping bans, particularly on occasions when temple movement activists are conducting prayers and other Jewish religious activity. If the Israeli restrictions persist, they will be especially harmful during Ramadan. During the month of Ramadan, Muslim religious activity at Al-Aqsa intensifies significantly. Traditionally, large numbers of Muslims pray at the holy site, exceeding 200,000 during peak times. Religious activity during the month is not limited to prayer times, but include fasting, seclusion, and study at all hours. Additionally, it is customary for many Muslims to break the fast. The compound Muslim presence at the site extends across the entire esplanade and is not confined to prayer structures. This year, the Jewish holiday Purim falls during the month of Ramadan. Jewish holidays have frequently served as flashpoints for nationalist agitation by temple movement activists at Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount. On the occasion of activists often receive backing from Knesset members and government ministers who visit the compound publicly assert Israeli control over the holy site and at times participate in Jewish prayer or various nationalist activities. In the past, Scumbrel generally exercised a relative restraint on the mount during Ramadan, whether in recognition of the month's sanctity or to avoid escalation stemming from heavy-handed policing that disrupts the worship of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of Muslims who visit the compound each month. In recent years, Israel has pursued different policies serving two main motivations. First, the guise of maintaining public order, purported rationale that effectively overrides Muslim freedom of worship. The police implement one of the temple movement's central demands, a division of time between Jews and Muslims at the compound. When the temple movement activists pray there, Muslims are barred from entering on ordinary days outside official Muslim prayer times. This policy affects several hundred to several thousand worshippers. If extended during Ramadan, however, impact would be far more severe. The second motivation, shared by both government and temple movement, is to reduce Muslim presence on the Haram al-Sharif Temple Mount as much as possible, thereby undermining its existence and recognition as a Muslim place of worship. For example, Scumreli journalist, prominent temple activist Arnon Segal welcomed declined number of Muslim worshippers and compounders positive trend and claimed that demonstrated the place is not particularly holy for Muslims. A nasty looking guy. Scumreli journalist, right wing activist donates kidney but only to Jews. Large Muslim presence at Aqsa, particularly the immense numbers in Ramadan, reflect the site's profound sanctity in Islam, which is anathema to the temple's movement. Therefore, Muslim presence and prayer on the Holy Spirit, particularly at such scale, run counter to the aspirations of both the temple movement nationalist actors in Scumrow that seek to transform compound. The above developments raised concern that aggressive policies pursued by government and Ben-Gvir will possess any moderation enforcement conduct allow Muslims to foster will feel disrespectful perceived by political allies. Police have various means of restricting Muslims' freedom of movement and worship at the compound. In some years, for example, they have gone so far as to block roads to Jerusalem to prevent buses carrying Muslim worshippers from Palestinian Arab localities inside Israel from reaching the site. The recommendations outlined below may be exhaustive and therefore police conduct must be closely monitored. Number 1, allow free access to the old city. Number 2, ensure free access to Aqsa at all times. Number 3, no cap on the number of Muslims in the compound. Number 4, maintain priority access for Muslims over non-Muslims including Jews. Reinstate ban on Jewish prayer on Haram Sharif. Limit the size of Jewish groups entering the holy compound. Muslim only access during the final 10 days of Ramadan. No violation of Muslims' freedom of worship during Purim holiday. So where do we go from here? Let's see some live updates. Iran war scummer plummet pummels southern Lebanon after Trump warns Netanyahu to hold Beirut assault. Right, so this is quite alarming, I would say, the whole Aqsa situation, and that's what I wanted to look at just before we leave. Look at what's happening in Albania. Thousands of protesters currently demonstrating in Albania, Tirana, along its southern coast to oppose multi-billion-dollar luxury resort project linked to Kushner and Trump. Under the slogan "Albania is not for sale," citizens' environmental groups are demanding the cancellation of development, the protection of ecologically sensitive areas, and the resignation of Edi Rama. The €4 billion development backed by Kushner from Affinity Target strictly protected Vosanarta coastal landscape in Zvernik and the uninhabited Adriatic island of Sazan. Activists warn the project would permanently disrupt bird migration routes, lagoons, and biodiversity. Lack of transparency. Protests accuse the government of bypassing public consultation and passing a controversial February 24 amendment on the law on protected areas specifically to allow luxury construction. Public access and land rights. Tensions rose sharply after developers erected a large barbed wire fence blocking access to local beaches in southern Albania. The developments have also triggered property disputes affecting local residents, including families from ethnic Greek minorities. Recent escalations. Clashes and violence. Protests intensified into direct conflict after video footage surfaced showing private security guards assaulting, dragging environmental activists near a cliffside. Crackdown government fall. In response to violence, Albanian authorities revoked license of two private security firms, arrested a guard, and dismissed local police chief for failed response. Wow.
With a YouTube music app, you can start a radio station with up to 30 artists. Go ahead, DJ Thumb.
Thousands of people took to the streets of Tirana, Albania's capital, on Monday to protest against a luxury resort project linked to US President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Affinity Partners, owned by Kushner, wants to turn the coastal wetland area into a huge resort. The project is planned to be built on several hectares of the protected Vioza Nata coastal landscape and on the uninhabited Adriatic island of Sazan. Albanian anti-corruption prosecutors say they are investigating the project after environmental NGOs have long raised concerns that it could threaten the area's biodiversity and disrupt bird migration routes. Albania's Prime Minister Edi Rama, who earlier confirmed talks with Kushner over the deal that includes 10,000 hotel rooms, told lawmakers on Monday that the project does not encroach on a protected wildlife reserve. Rama said the final proposal has yet to be submitted and the environmental study done was not complete.
That's insane.
Hi, it's Dua Lipa here. Tune in to one of my favorite performances, Radical Optimism, live from Mexico City, only on YouTube.
Jared Kushner's dad is a fraudster himself. Harvey Kushner. Crazy. So yeah. Khaldun. What's interesting is that he states in chapter 2 that people who live a sedentary lifestyle, the big cities, a life of comfort and so on, they tend to be more near to evil as compared to Bedouins who are constantly struggling, understand hardship, and really don't look for much apart from the necessities. But it seems like as time goes on, especially with the smartphone that exists now, people are more prone to certainly accelerating the flow of information and encountering other cultures and certainly conflicts as well. So in terms of Aqsa, I think we need to take a step to mention Arnold Toynbee. Zealots are stuck in their old ways aggressively, and Herodonists adopt the foreigners' ways of life and try and make a prototype or a 2.0, another version of what they have, and use it against them. I would agree with Toynbee that neither of these personalities are in need, and neither of these routes are a viable way of taking over what's rightfully ours, which is, of course, Palestine. and beyond. So the only way is the Quran, Siratul Mustaqim, we know that. But its implementation is the hardest part. But in any case, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Assalamu alaikum.